Three people who have been long involved in spreading Baba's message of love and truth through literature and books and other means. And I'd like to introduce them now. First we have Ann Conlon from Myrtle Beach. Can we all welcome her with a round of applause? Been involved for a number of years with Shariar Press, publishing of books. I'm sure everybody has a number of books on their shelves that say Shariar Press on the side. Does anybody remember Shariar Press when it was just Sheila Krinsky cranking things out of her garage? Huh? You do? All right. Next we have our own Filis Frederick from the Los Angeles group. Filis, I don't know if you were here yesterday for the Higher Trivial Pursuit. One of the questions was, it was a trick question, Filis. It was, who was the very first editor of the Awakener magazine? And the question was thrown to it was the Southern California group against the Northern California group. And so the Southern California group drew that question. And we were all sitting there and everybody thought Filis, but then since they said who was the very first publisher, no, the very first editor, somebody thought maybe it was Craig Winterfeld, back and forth. And finally everybody said it has to be Filis. And indeed it was, and we got the answer right. And I think you put us up on the first plane. All right. And last we have Nashwan Anzar. Let's welcome him. And of course, Nashwan has been publishing books and writing poetry for Baba and about Baba for many, many, many years, since at least the middle 60s. Yeah, and the Glow magazine started in 1966. Okay. Well, we'll hear more from each of our panel members about their history and what they feel about the importance of writing and publishing literature about Baba. Nashwan, why don't you start? Would you like to
Sure.
say what you feel about that?
I've stopped feeling about it long back. I just go ahead and do it. Because I feel it's most important, very, very important. Among the very many meetings I've had with Baba, they've had about discussions about the glow, about the need and necessity of spreading Baba's message through both publishing and writing and publishing of books, as well as in my capacity as a public relations officer, I had access to the media in India as well as sometimes in the United States. And now that I've been living here for 5 years, I've been able to do a little bit of work with the media, both the radio, television, and the printed media in New York. So I have always believed in very strongly that each one of us, with whatever capacity we have for spreading Baba's message, spreading the word, should translate that in whatever one is best at. If one is a filmmaker, one goes out and makes a film. If one is a writer, he puts it in a book or in a magazine or in articles for the newspaper. Or if one is a musician, sings Baba songs. But whatever the medium, it's very important to share Baba with others. As far as I was concerned, Baba gave me the mandate to let the world know that Meher Baba is God in human form, which I will talk to you later, tomorrow, perhaps. But that mandate, I believe, is not exclusively for me, but it's a responsibility for each one of us to share Baba with the others, those whom you love, and even those, even strangers who you would meet in your hamlets, villages, towns, cities, wherever you are. And the best way to do that is to use your energy, use your talents in expressing Baba through whatever medium you would use, or you choose to use.
Thank you, Nashwan. Can we go now to Filis? The importance of, what's your very first take on that, Phyllis? How important is it?
Well, when I first met Bob in 1952 in Myrtle Beach, that was what he said to me that very first day. I spread my message of love and truth. It didn't focus, exactly what that meant at that moment, but as National said, I've always felt that next to loving Bobby yourself, you want to tell others about him, share the love. Love is something that grows with sharing. That's what, for example, Sahavas is all about, sharing love. And for me as a writer and editor, it was easy to do it that way as well as other ways. And I'm very happy that Bob gave me his blessing for publishing and going on in that direction, which I hope I still continue. I think we all have things to say about Bob. I've been very happy that so many people shared their reminiscences with me through the awakening. I was the first one to encourage Kitty to write her diaries, to get them published. That turned out to be a wonderful thing. Turned into a wonderful book. And it did. Things like that. Just sharing.
Well, thank you, Phyllis. Anne, how about you? The importance of publishing Bob's literature.
Well, on a personal level, I'm very fortunate that Bob is giving me something I love to keep me out of trouble and off the street. I mean, how frequently does that happen to anybody? But on the important level, when I went to work for Sherry Art Press full-time 3 years ago, I had a continuing part-time involvement in the books they were doing for 15 years. But 3 years ago, I felt that I wanted to be involved in any effort that was made to keep Baba's words in print and available to the people who would want them in the future. Not so much that I felt it was spreading Baba's message, because I tend to put that in context when Baba said, let your life be my message of love and truth. And I'm involved in the publishing in lieu of that. Because I don't feel my life is. Right. So it gives me something to do. You do what you can. But the most important thing to me was, like some of the books that we have done, like Kitty's, Margaret's book, Dance of Love, and the sequel to come next year. Ronald Daly's book. A lot of those are the stories, Billy Eaton's, are the icing on the cake. But what was most important to me, that never do the books of Baba's writings go out of print and become unavailable. But that's the important thing to keep going. And the rest of it is for fun. But that is the important thing. That those words stay unchanged without the addition of anybody else's opinion of what they mean. That they stay in print and available.
Well, thank you, Anne. When a person wants to work for Bob and spread his message with publishing, one has to work with other people. And working with other people in Bob and for Baba usually means some grinding of the ego, some real strong differences of opinion. And how has that come into play with each of you and the people you've worked with? And how has it helped you in your relationship with Baba? To working with others and the differences of opinions. Who wants to go first? Now, come on, I think he does. He just had an argument a little while ago with somebody about publishing.
Well, as far as publishing is concerned, I must confess I've been pretty much a loner. And if Baba was not at my elbow, it would have been impossible to publish The Globe. This is the 20th anniversary of The Globe. We started in 1965 was the first issue, called The Spark. And first issue was actually not meant to start off a magazine. It was an anniversary issue of Baba's visit to Dehradun, and it was financed by the Dehradun Center that month. And then we thought, why not continue with the magazine? And I wrote to Baba, and it was fine. Baba said yes, and gave a set of instructions. When we wrote to the registrar of newspapers, he said you can't use the title Spark because that was the title of a defunct communist newspaper. So we practically looked out for another title and came up with The Glow, and Baba approved of that title, and that's how we started it. And the first issue came out, my parents gave me 200 rupees, which is like $20 or something, and that's how the first issue came out in the tabloid format. And since then, you have seen how The Glow has evolved. It's been very hard going, particularly with finances. But the crunch came but last year when my family and I decided to stay on in the United States. And to publish The Glow from in the United States, because it was getting difficult. I had to do the typesetting, and the artwork was being done in New Jersey. It was mailed out to Bombay, where it was being printed under no supervision, and then it was mailed out to Dehradun, which is in the north of India, from where it was being dispatched. So it was intercontinental publishing, and it was becoming practically impossible to bring out The Glow. So then we decided to start printing it somehow. So we put out mailers to Baba lovers throughout the United States, all over the world, to send in the subscriptions, which they did. But the most wonderful thing that has happened is that we were unable to bring any money out of the country, so we practically had to start The Glow from scratch. I mean, virtually from scratch. And we discovered the wonders of desktop publishing. And Baba Lover donated the Macintosh, which, by Baba's grace, I learned in 5 minutes flat. Never having ever touched a computer or having even seen one. And the first issue, the February issue that you may have received, was done entirely on the Macintosh, except a few bits that we couldn't fit and had to be typeset. But this way, we were spending as much as $35, $40 sometimes on typesetting and artwork. And this way, we were able to get 3 columns onto a page straight on the Macintosh, on the screen. And all we had to do is to put it out, to make it out, to look like an artwork. We had to spend 50 cents to put it out through a laser writer. And of course, the printing cost. So I was able to continue with printing the cover in color.
Decided that perhaps a treasurer near me, not in New York, would work a little better, because the bank checks, you can imagine, they had to go to Fred, and he had to sign them, then they had to come back, and then they had to be changed to the Awakener account. I mean, anybody does accounting, you know. So that was kind of an upsetting incident. But we worked it out in Baba's love. We always managed to do that. But gradually, I had to do more and more of the work myself. And right now, I'm just everybody from top to bottom. I even mail the stuff, do the bookkeeping, publishing, editing, everything. I'm a one-man operation. And I hope I can keep it up for a little while. I want to thank you all who resubscribe and to keep the Awakening going, because, you know, it's getting to the point where perhaps everybody's a little bored when they wait there.
Oh, no. No.
It's not so flashy and up to date. No color cover. Anyway, we're friendly rivals. You should subscribe to both of them.
Okay. And what about clashes of the ego and involved work involving publishing?
Actually, it's been very easy.
Sorry, leave that.
Sorry. But, yeah. Andy Lesnick and Sheila Krinsky and I really click when we're working on a book. And Sheila had told me, she said, once we got this together, there are 3 people doing this. I do the day-to-day stuff. That she had never seen things go through that shop so smoothly as once we got that together. And I would have expected to have clashes with the authors I've worked with. But I have never seen people so easy to work with. I worked on a newspaper for 15 years as a reporter, photographer, and then as an editor, and talk about egos. Where reporters who thought every word they wrote was like their baby, and God forbid you should ever cut it out. You've murdered the child. But these people, absolutely fantastic. I couldn't believe it. How cooperative, how easy, how wonderful they were about taking suggestions and going along with me when I wanted my own way on something. They were wonderful. Just marvelous. So there hasn't been any of that kind of conflict. That may change tomorrow. But so far, it's been marvelously easy. Well, I may have done all that when I was working for the newspaper. I may have, all that ego stuff, would have come up for me. Which it did, of course it did. And it may have been burned out. And I and the other people involved now have, at this point, learned how to work together with some give and take and concentrate on what's the best thing for the project.
I'd like to add a little bit, as I said, about the beloved. Soon after Baba dropped his body, I decided that what I'd do is write Baba's life. And immediately started filleting Hero and spent days and nights and worked with stenographers and typists, and it took me close to 2.5 years, 3 years to complete it. And then of course I went lugging the big manuscript around to various printers. Someone quoted 200,000 rupees, somebody, 2 lakhs is a lot of money in India, and somebody quoted, somebody said it's impossible to print it. 150 photographs? Oh, forget it. I just gave up the idea. I said, I've done everything, I've written the book, that's it, now it's in Baba's hands. My first trip to the United States, 72, I was sitting in Elizabeth's living room and casually mentioned how it was impossible for me to print this biography of Baba, the beloved. And I didn't want to compromise on not using the 150 photographs that I wanted included in it. So she asked me to leave the manuscript overnight and asked me to come in the morning, the next morning for breakfast. And I did come the next morning, and there were a man and a woman sitting there, actually a young boy and a lady. And she said, this is Andy Lesnick and this is Sheila Krinsky. Mm-hmm. And they will print your book. I was so taken aback. And I said, but Elizabeth, with the 150 photographs? And I had brought those photographs up, and she said yes. And Andy said, yes, we print the book. Just like that. Just like that. I had never even imagined it. And then Sheila said, we'll show you our press. So, in order to, it was as if the room had been built around the printing machine. You had to walk like this sideways against the wall. And I thought, I said, how it doesn't appear as if you're going to print such a big book with this little machine. And then a year and a half, I think 2 years later, came the Beloved came out, and the rest is history. Went through several hardcover printings, and then went to paperback, and has been doing a superb job with it.
I'll tell you about that, Beloved. This is an extraordinary book. Out of all the books that are out in bookstores, I'm not talking about, mail order from Baba people, but in bookstores, The Beloved is by far and away the best seller. And that's consistent year after year.
All those great photographs.
It is, and it's that cover picture that just grabs people.
In fact, the cover picture also has a story. Before I went to visit Morton Beach in '72, I went to the New York Center. At that time, it was in the Village. And the moment I walked in, I saw this incredible color picture on the wall. I'd never seen it before because I hadn't been to the United States, and the original painting was done by, I forget his name, Julian Lamar. And David Itkowitz was there, and I said, is this some kind of a light that's on Baba's picture on the head? And if you look at the Beloved cover closely, you'll notice that there are some grainy spots. And he said, no, it was the original picture was in Myrtle Beach at Baba's room, and it seemed that there was a seepage or something like that, and that little area got spoiled. But when the actual picture is printed, it looks so attractive as if there is a kind of a natural halo coming over the head. And I said, despite the fact that it looks damaged or blurred, it still comes out beautiful. And it did come out beautifully. That's the cover we chose for the book.
You lucked out with that picture on the cover. There was a ban on taking pictures of that painting in Baba's house, and was it David or Joseph? David didn't know that, so he took that picture. And the color separation was made and going on the cover of the book when Elizabeth Patterson found out about this.
I didn't know this.
Too late. So she gave in with good grace, but it was Baba's timing that picture actually got to be used.
Something comes to mind for all people who want to publish something about Baba, fire about Baba. Where do you all get your sources of your source material, and what are some interesting stories you've had in cajoling people to write down their memoirs, to turn over their diaries, and all that? Because we've all heard stories about, Kitty never wanted to write a book, or Margaret, you could never pin her down. And how did you all work out the getting of your material from reluctant sources? And is there a dearth of information still?
They weren't reluctant. I mean, my first experience with working totally with a book, like doing the whole thing myself with the author, was with Ronald Gaelic. And I was not even working for Shariar Press at the time. I was working for the Senate. 2 people had done manuscripts for this book over a period of 10 years. Ronald didn't like either one of them. But she had the manuscripts. She had a collection of taped interviews. And she knew generally what she wanted in the book. And she really wanted it to be done before she died. So Pat Sumner in India kept pushing Rano to get somebody to do it. And she finally suggested, she said, Rano, write to Ann Connell and ask her if she will do it. And Rano said, well, she won't want to do that. So Pat wrote to me and said, Rano's afraid to write to you because she thinks her down. And asked if I would like to do the book. And I was ecstatic. It came just at the right time. I really wanted something like that to work on. So I cabled Rano. And I just said, whoopee. I'm delighted. So it wasn't easy. I mean, it wasn't hard to get that. And it was hard, I thought, in the beginning. When I got all the material that was sent to me in the United States, I went to India after that twice to spend time with Ronald. But when I got the original material, and looked at the manuscripts that had been done. I was very discouraged because I didn't think there was a book there. But it was a process of retranscribing all those tapes, and it was like peeling off, like you would with a painting. And the masterpiece is underneath, somebody's painted over. And you just have to peel off all those top layers. And that's what that book was like. There was this beautiful story underneath all of that stuff. And Billy Eaton's book, which I also did, I didn't have to do much persuasion. Billy was in Myrtle Beach 7 or 8 years ago. We were out to dinner, having a drink, and she was talking about the 50s with Bob, and I said, Billy, why don't you do your memoirs? Write it down. And then I forgot about it. And 6 months later, it came in the mail. She just went ahead and did it. And we had some back and forth. I asked her to expand on it. I had never heard of Operation Topsy, the sort of family letters that she got out. And she found all of those, Mommy's original letters to her. So it wasn't hard getting material. And now I'm going to start on Delia de Leon's memoirs. Kitty tipped us off to that one. She knew that Delia was working on it. And she said, write to her right away. And I did. And I said, we would love to do the book with you. How you got it published? And she wrote back and said, yes. So I don't think it's been hard to persuade people. They're very cooperative.
Phyllis, how about you?
Well, I started in 1953. I wrote to Bob for permission to start a magazine about him because at that time there was really very little in print, and it had to come from India, which was very difficult, female, and for example, the discourses were hard to get at and so forth. And I got a beautiful letter from Bob giving me permission and to have anything of his that I could edit any way I liked, which was important as the years went by. And he himself, from then on, would send me manuscripts for first printing in the Awakening. So we have a lot of interesting firsts, like the prayers and the message to high and MeherBaba's call and all sorts of things, which I have taken out and put into the Path of Love, all those very special things that Bob himself sent me. And then other people sent things in too. And but I had a curious order from Bob for a while. It was not to print anything from Indian. Which was kind of interesting. I got a lot of manuscripts from India. But I don't know. And also a very important thing Bob said about me was not to take advertising. Well, I don't know if you know the publishing world. Every magazine is supported by advertising. So we kept to that, and just a few Baba books we charge for printing, just a page about them, but otherwise I've had no revenue from advertising. So Baba gave special orders, but he was the main source for a long time of wonderful manuscripts, for which I'm very happy. So that was kind of nice.
Nashua?
With me, it was in two different areas. One was the glow, the other was the books. I'll talk about the books first. For example, during the Ancient One, Erich said, go ahead and do what you want. I don't want to see the manuscript. And the other condition was that I shouldn't put his name on the cover. That was the other thing. So it meant talking to his mother, and his mother taking a promise from me not to tell Erich that she had talked to me. And then Erich getting back to his chiding his mother for having talked to me about the various things. This is particularly about the introduction where they talked about their coming to Baba. And then Erich said he would permit interviews anytime that I was there in Mirzad, so he gave extensive interviews. He also shared his diaries with me. Now these diaries were, there were actually two kinds of diaries. One was that, I don't know whether you know of this, but very often Erich would write on the walls of the cabin several messages of Baba on the walls, because he had to rush back and he would write a point and he would write on the walls in various different places and come and then complete the entire message that Baba had given him. So he had collected a lot of these things in a book, in a diary, which he shared with me, which I've given in the section of the Ancient One. And the other one was a small prayer book, which was carried by him in the New Life everywhere, which I'm bringing out as a prayer book separately. Those and all the other prayers that I've collected over the years, Baba spontaneously gave out, particularly during the New Life when he walked around. Before having an evening meal, he would gather the money around him, stand under a banyan tree or under a tree, and he would have Baba would spontaneously utter a prayer, and that which would record and repeat at different places. So it's a little collection of. So that was how I did the Ancient One. But there was one chapter which I would particularly like to talk about, and that was about Baba's the last days of MeherBaba, of how I wrote that chapter. I had no material with me, absolutely no material. And as you will notice if you read between the lines, that it's been very carefully documented hour by hour. Now what had happened is that when Ali was alive, he had given me his diaries. He used to write his diaries from 1932 till he died. But I had them from 1932 to 1970, and I had them with me for 3 years. And I transcribed them. They still haven't been published. I transcribed them. But in the 1969 diary, there were notes pinned that were exchanged back and forth between Erich and Ali and Gohar. And these were slips of paper as to how, hour by hour, how Baba felt, what his temperatures were, what were his various readings, what medicines were being given to him, who was on night duty. So I had these little slips of paper which I had copied out from the diary. And I then pieced them together and made them into one big whole. Plus what I had interviewed Ram Ginde about, that was Baba's doctor in the last few days. I put those together, and that's how I did the last days of MeherBaba in the Ancient One. So sometimes the material does not come that easily, but one has to really dig in. To give you an example of the latest issue of The Globe, there is this beautiful letter written by Beryl Williams to Dr. Martin Luther King, and I got a lot of letters from Baba lovers expressing thanks for having printed that letter. Now, this was when I used to meet her sister ever so often, Bernice Ivory. And I said, what happened to Beryl's material? And she told me a little story, but she said, I have a suitcase full of material which has not been opened since Beryl died. And I was completely taken aback. So after an adventurous trip to the Bronx, where Bernice lives, I left 2 heavy suitcases back, and there was an absolute treasure, particularly of photographs. Beryl was the one who used to distribute Baba photographs throughout the United States. In those days, and money used to send her. Some of them were in original packets sent by money. I mean, they were incredible. And signed pictures of Baba, all kinds of interesting things, and material. And this was one of the, she had in fact even written to Reverend Ralph Abernathy, who's alive today and who was his assistant. Soon after, I tried to contact Mrs. King, as well as the I think they still call it the Negro Museum in the South, in Birmingham. But I didn't get a response from either Mrs. King. I enclosed the letter, but then that's why I gave that letter without Mrs. King's rejoinder. And I even wrote to Reverend Abernathy, but I never got a reply from him. So this is some of the ways that we get material. Then sometimes what happens is when I'm sometimes completely stuck for material for the globe. My main source of material was Adi and Urech. These were the two people. And sometimes money is where this is after Baba dropped his body. When Baba was in the body, I would get everything as an advanced copy, like messages from Baba or discourses that were ultimately sent out or distributed in the West and the East. I remember once when I was absolutely stuck for material, I get a big packet from Adi, and these were the diaries of Abdul Ghani Munsif, which in later years I put in the Globe. Again, one of the main things that I'm trying to do with the Globe is to bring out a lot of old, unpublished material which has not been read, which had a 500 copy printing or something which is not available, out of print, and then I'm trying to bring it in a new format, injecting a little bit of journalism in it by making spectacular titles and things so that it's attractive. I'm trying to make it a little more colorful so that people enjoy reading it. And that's what I'm trying to do now with the Globe. Yes, ma'am? It's available. I have a copy here with me in the room. You just have to read it. It was a letter inviting him for Baba's darshan at Myrtle Beach. And it just gives a complete background of who Meher Baba is as Barry Williams thought and felt.
I believe we have some copies at the bookstore because it is in the latest issue of the Glow magazine. I think it might be time for some questions from the audience. Does anybody have a question about publishing that they'd like to put to one of our panel members? After you ask it, I'm going to repeat it into the microphone so it'll pick up properly. Michael.
Well, I don't know why I want to say this, but do you know that I was the first printer for Sharia Press?
Yes.
So it's really, I was in L.A. we had just had that earthquake, right? And we had planned to move, my wife at the time. I've had 3. And
the earthquakes?
Anyway, so, in other words, Sheila was just getting together with Andy, and it was just like all up in the air. And I was invited across country to start this whole thing. She ran the press about 6 months.
That picture of you, Andy, Sheila, and Beth Cheney is still hanging in the new Sharia Press building. Boy, were you young.
I haven't changed much.
Well, let's see if we can find somebody else to make fun of here. Who else has a question? A question about publishing for one of our, either they can be a question for a particular panel member or it could be a general question that anyone could answer. Yes?
Considering that both magazines have their expenses, their costs, what is the thought of like a combined thing, or is that contrary to the mind of Baba?
Okay, the question is, and again I'm repeating it so it picks up right for the machines here, the question is, considering the expenses involved in both of the magazines, The Awakener and The Globe, what does the possibility of a joint venture, or would it be against the principles of their founding, or what? Phyllis?
I have thought of it, especially as I'm kind of winding down in my own life, and I hope the Awakener will continue. And we still have some very interesting material in our archives. I think it might happen in the future. I think anyone who's into publishing a magazine and is an editor, you have your own style, your own thinking, and your own ideas about things. And I still think in the Baba community there's room for 2 slightly different types of publications with slightly different orientation. And I don't know how next you want to do something.
I'm open to anything that Filis says. She's the godmother of publishing, Baba Publishing.
Outside of the magazine publishing, I'll tell you how I feel about it. They're two different flavors, and they should both keep going.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that difference. There you go.
All right. Another question. Well, I have one then. We've heard a little bit about some of the different Mondelez diaries. What about Elizabeth Patterson's diaries?
All I know about it is that Wendy Haynes and Buzz Connor are working on those diaries and pulling them together. And Elizabeth did keep detailed diaries for most of her life. So one hopes to see those. They'll be fantastic. You can tell just from reading the old journals, you know, that Elizabeth's style was magnificent. And it's the sort of thing that nobody is going to need to edit much. Like Margaret Kraft writes, she doesn't need an editor. She has a unique style. It's very clear.
There's a question there.
What years will Margaret Kraft's second book cover?
What years will Margaret Kraft's book's second book cover?
Actually, I think it's pretty much the same years, but there are other stories that she thought of after she did the first one. And she has come up herself with the title for the second book. She wants to call it, the first one was The Dance of Love, and she wants to call this one Still Dancing with Love.
Ward Parks.
I've been struck by the fact that it seems to be those of you who are working in this know that there's been a real change in the sort of material that is abundantly available. When Baba was alive, of course, these were sort of messages of his that have been coming out at this time. And of course, now there's probably still some material, there's old material to be made available. But it strikes me that as time goes on, the character of what is really available is going to be changing. Even memoirs, and of course, in 30 years, people who have these memories through writing memoirs with, will be passing on. So I'm wondering if any of those of you who have worked so intensely in this have any thoughts, ideas about what the future of MeherBaba publishing will be.
Okay, what's the future of MeherBaba publishing, considering the evolution of the material that's available?
I have some thoughts about that. I was criticized for publishing so many reminiscences and memoirs and so forth of an archival type it happened to be a Sufi, but I appreciate their point of view that we should live in the now, and how does Baba relate to a younger generation, and how do people feel about him now, how do we live in the world with Baba. And I would love to see more material from a different generation that may not have the memoirs of having met Baba. But I don't find that a great many people communicate that. And just laying it out, would be happy to see more feelings about people and their feelings toward Baba and an ongoing wave of relation to Baba. I suppose down the line, I see, perhaps because we're all so human and this is happening in history over and over again, that we get more and more abstract and theological and metaphysical. And that I sort of don't anticipate too much, but in my generation anyway. But I can see that happening too. People will write commentaries on God's speech, and, commentaries on the commentaries. And analyzing, I've gotten some letters very bitterly complaining about Bao's book, and calling it vandalism. I don't know. There's a lot of room for a new world of discussion on this.
I have some thoughts on this too. In the latest issue of the Globe, that's the February issue, there is part 1 of an article called MeherBaba in Theatre, and part 2 is appearing in the May, which is also coming out of the August issue because we haven't been able to bring it out in time. And that over a period of years, I have been featuring articles by transpersonal psychologists, psychotherapists, and trying to bring MeherBaba into the humanistics, transpersonal psychology fields. In fact, trying to humanize it in the sense that the Journal of Transpersonal Psychology carried a full issue article on Baba. So I'm trying to maintain a balance with the old and the new by Mortonizing by bringing into a present context, into the now, what material has been published in the past. Like the latest issue carries an article called MeherBaba in Theatre, a message he gave here in Hollywood, which when reread today is pretty much applicable to the work that people are doing in film and theatre. So this way, by reprinting, which has already appeared in print in the past and is lost to the young people today.
It's not lost, it's in the awakening.
That's right. But like the Filis had carried, to give you a tangible example, Filis had carried a wonderful article called Lost Words of MeherBaba, or something like that, and she had an article from Rom Landau's book God Is My Adventure, and from Search in Secret India by Paul Brunton. Now this is what I mean. Every day, one of my hobbies is to go into bookstores and look for new books that have come out which quote Baba, and you will be amazed. I look up the index and I find MeherBaba listed there. There's a book called Awakening Intuition, MeherBaba listed. Entire big chunk from MeherBaba in that book by Frances Vaughan, that lady. So lots of books are bringing out material which has been published in the past or is appearing now. I have a lot of material, Chandi's diaries, also recordings by Miss Countess Tolstoy and Elizabeth Patterson, plus Ali's diaries, which I have not printed in the Globe because I'm planning to bring it out in book form. Again, the material that Mera has given me, or the material that Mani has given me about her family, part of which appeared in The Beloved, part will appear in other books. So I personally feel that it will go on and on, it will be an ongoing process. And if Baba wants that to happen, if he wants that sharing to continue, it will happen. And I don't think that one could say that the material will dry up or it will die or there won't be any material. I know that the Globe will die the day I die. So, or maybe somebody will take it on. But I believe that I can carry on the Globe forever.
Great, you'll be incarnate.
It's working.
What is that? Yeah, about what happens in the future, and perhaps changes in the style of stuff that's done. In 30 years, there will be new people coming to Baba, and they will be asking the same questions that we all asked when we first heard about it, which is, what was it like to be with MeherBaba? And it's for those people that I think it's important to continue to gather the reminiscences and the memoirs before they are lost. Now, we've already had an occasion of that with Fred Miller, Winifred. there isn't much recorded. And that was a big mistake. Because that was a rich vein of memories. It was gone. In good part. Because they didn't talk in public too frequently about it. I think it's always important because I see new people coming all the time. Being in the book room at Sharia, I see new people who come to the center. And the question is always the same. What was it really like? And I think in 30 years people are still going to want to know that because after all, it will always be the personal relationship with Baba that's important to those who look for him and find him. And even though it may get more intellectual or mental, as Margaret Cass said to me once, she said, there's nothing to worry about. There are always mystics in the world. There will always be people looking for that personal relationship with Baba, which he himself said was the most important thing. And if those memoirs serve to inspire even one person, then they're worth breaking your back to gather and make sure to publish and preserve.
Another question back there, Scott.
Great question. Which one of you has Baba's different book?
If you were a subscriber to the show, you would have...
The new bonus
In the February '85 issue of the Globe, there was an interview with Eric on the book. Did you read it? It was an interview, a detailed interview with Eric on the book, including numbers of lockers, bank lockers, as to when it was taken out and dates. That gives you a lot of answers.
All right, who else has it? There's a question here.
I was just wondering if there is anybody publishing some of the younger people who their stories met Baba, for instance, Charles, he, Amrit got a challenge at first.
I found that too.
Okay, I'd like to
And
repeat the
the
question.
Shaw, their family. Those are three different.
Okay, the question is there anybody currently publishing or considering publishing younger people who met Baba, like Amrit and others like that, or Charles Haynes?
I think a number of people collecting either written pieces. Everybody's doing the same thing, right? Or tapes, and in the end, it doesn't matter who does it, as long as that stuff is preserved. I myself thought it was important first to go after the older people, on the assumption the younger ones are going to live longer, and you can always catch up with them. But certainly that'll be done, and some of those people who had very long experience with Baba will do their own individual books, and some of them will end up in anthologies. You know, but there are actually already in existence hundreds of tape recorded, and there are also written pieces in various stages of being finished. There is a lot of material.
which it seemed I would have had to stop and use just black and white, which I was reluctant to do. And now we're hoping to do a lot of books, a lot of publications. As Anne mentioned, I'm printing a series of books, all on the Macintosh. And hopefully we'll be able to bring out all the old books that are not available anymore. In fact, I brought one along today in the Gandhi Baba meetings discussion. A book that has messages which none of you have ever, I think, even read. And it's a book that should be republished, which I hope to do soon. But that is, and of course, even in New Jersey, when I came, I thought that I'd be able to get a great deal of help, but it seems that everyone has so many things to do that we haven't been able to get the entire publishing revival into that gear which I thought I would be able to put it through. And if those who wish to help, I have put in little inserts in the Glow saying that those who wish to help in transcribing tapes, in putting things on a diskette, or doing this, should come forward. And I've even received letters of those from New Jersey work or whatever. We're starting this big publishing revival. In India, I used to publish 2 books in a year. After coming to the United States, I've cut down to 1 book. So, of course, the Sharia Press has been right behind me from the start. They brought out The Beloved, and they did a magnificent job on the Best of the Glow. And now the current book that I'm working on, which is being given to me by the Mandali, is a book on Mehra, which I was in India 3 weeks back, and I was reprimanded for not doing too much on the book. And hopefully I should be able to complete it very soon. So that is the next Beloved Books project.
Thank you, Nashwan. Filis, what about the grinding of egos and working with people together?
He
He did?
I haven't had to work with too many people.
But now you will.
Good, Filis.
Well, you know how Baba loves to get rid of your ego. And in my enthusiasm for publishing, I didn't think about that at the beginning. But like the Glow, our Awakener was always spread out incredibly. Warren Healy was our printer in Seattle, Washington, and I was in New York. And my source of material in India, it's been like that. Then I had my treasure in Berkeley, and it just got. I had associate editors in Myrtle Beach and all over San Francisco. And of course, we have a problem in communication, which is difficult. But everybody, harmonized up to certain points. But I had some real nice, jolly clashes. And I had a clash with Elizabeth once. And that's like colliding with a Mack truck. And I was real upset. I didn't know what to do, and I was so upset. And without my writing to Baba, I couldn't have written this fast. Baba sent a cable the next day. Here I'm worrying on day 1, and day 2 I get a cable from Baba answering my question, my inward question. So that's a pretty nice way to solve a problem. It was on my side. And it was particularly hard with the treasurers. Fred was our treasurer in New York, and he, because of various reasons, couldn't. Every check to the Awakener had to be to Fred Winterfeld. Well, that got really upsetting, and So I thought perhaps that wouldn't need to continue because I found you could open an account for the away there, and he disagreed with that. That was another big excitement and